Hi everybody, this is Greg Tanner for The Mindful Eye and the photo of the week on the Daily Critique. This week's photo of the week is a powerful architectural image created by Danielle, who's an advanced photographer from Italy. Metadata that we have, Canon EOS D400 with a 50mm lens. And Danielle lets us know in the backstory this is the Museum of 21st Century Art in Rome, Italy. Lots of potentially very powerful takeaways in studying Danielle's beautiful architectural image. We could start with quality of light. So much of the time as photographers, we unfortunately fall into this habit of judging quality of light outside of the context of subject matter. So we just start to say these are good times of day to shoot, these are bad times of day to shoot, particularly when we're talking about shooting scenes like this, either architectural, street scenes, or landscape. And boy, can that rob us of a lot of creativity. You're looking at an image here that's been shot in the brightest light of the day. Not only is it working in this light, I would go so far as to say it is working because of this light. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but a big part of this composition is the abstraction of this shadow. If you're standing there, you see detail in here, but because of the overhead, harsh nature of the light, Danielle has this opportunity with framing and exposure to turn this into just abstract, flat, black negative space. It's a big part of what is keeping this composition simple and making it work. To really put a challenge out to you looking at this image today. If you've just been shutting down as a scenic photographer during the brightest light of the day for the next few months, you might make a point whenever time makes this possible for you to go out in the middle of the day on clear days in the harshest light and congruent with your vision and the things you like to photograph, to not only look for subjects that can work in this quality of light, look for subjects that work because of this quality of light. And one powerful concept to keep in your mind is this idea of how you can work with shadow in a very graphic, abstract way. The other thing that I'm really enjoying about Danielle's composition here is, to my way of thinking about composition, this is a partial abstraction of this subject matter. And I think partial abstracts have the potential to be very powerful. When we can marry the literal with the abstract in one image, it can really have a big impact on the viewer. So let's talk about this for a second. On the right hand side of this image, we're getting a literal sense of the architectural nature of this structure. We've already looked at the abstract of this shadow. It's not just the abstract here, it's also the way that on the left hand side of the image, because of the framing, because of the exposure, Danielle is really getting us to look more at just the underlying structures, the shapes and the qualities of line and the implication of motion or movement. On the left hand side, it's not so much museum, if we were to just crop here, as it is the intrinsic qualities of the architecture. And I just love the way those two things are being married in this composition. I wasn't familiar with the structure, so one of the things that I did was I googled the structure and then went to images because I wanted to see overall what it looked like. And another very impressive thing to me about this image was going several pages deep on the images. I didn't see anything that looked like this. I could see that parts of the museum look like this. I think it's really beautiful how a personal vision is being reflected in this shot, and I think part of that has to do with the abstract nature of the left hand side of the frame. This image gives us a great chance to talk about line as an element of design. We could talk about it in a very basic way. We could say something that's true and basic, which is they're all different qualities of line. And we could say that in a general sense, that lines that break the parallels of the framing device, these lines create more energy in the mind's eye of the viewer. And for the most part, quality of line is very dynamic, to say the least, in this composition. There's a strong sense of the suggestion of diagonal, and then even more dynamic than that, flowing, arcing line. Another thing that I love about quality of line in this image is that these dynamic lines that we're seeing in the image are very powerful here because there aren't a lot of lines in the image. There's a lot of just flat space. So from a conceptual difference, the lines are contrasting with the rest of the composition. And then these lines also give us a chance to talk about the design principle of implied motion. When we talk about that in the context of line, we would say leading line. What's a leading line? It's a line that moves us towards a main idea or one of the main ideas in the composition. And for me, this is definitely one of the main ideas. And when you look at all these dynamic qualities of line over and over and over again, they're pushing towards the main idea. Another thing that we can talk about when it comes to line here that's really fascinating is how we do get to a place of a visual sea level in this architectural shot. Right there and right there, we have a line that rhymes the vertical frame, and then we have a line that rhymes the horizontal frame. So even though there's an enormous amount of motion in this flow, then in the context of this architectural shot, we get to these places that represent visual sea level. And I think that's very powerful. I love the proportionality of a little bit of these leveling lines and a lot of the movement and flowing and dynamic lines. Another thing that this image gives us a chance to see in a very simple way, something I talk about all the time, two design principles. Balance, and I talk about how the design principle of rhythm can help us to create a sense of balance for the viewer without pushing so far towards simplicity and order and balance that things become boring. How does rhythm do it? Rhythm is when we do repeat, but we repeat with some variation or a lot of variation. And you're seeing that here. Whole shot is framed by these space shapes. And are they close to the same? Sure, they are. There's quality of line and overall in the shape. There's a sense that they're close to the same, but they're not exactly the same. There's variation. The shapes themselves are different in some respects. Obviously, the values are different. There's texture in this idea, and there's not over here. And then you're seeing it again. You're seeing these two implied space shapes that are rhyming each other, close to the same but not exact. Just a really beautiful example here if you get confused about the difference between pattern, repetition, and rhythm. Really neat image where we can see in a very simple way this concept of rhythm and how rhythm can help us to have balance without things becoming static. A lot of things that I can continue to talk about, but I just want to end with an element of design that I think is incredibly powerful, and I love the way that Danielle has worked with it here, and that's the design element of color. I love the way that the achromatic color ideas here. So you've got black and gray and white. They are truly achromatic. These are purely achromatic color ideas. You definitely have the potential here for some kind of overall color cast from the secondary light source in this scene. Primary light source is obviously the sun, and if we're shooting on daylight white balance at this time of day, then the sun is going to be sort of this neutral white light source. But then we have the rest of the sky. It looks like a clear day. You have all this blue. We could easily have the feeling of blue being everywhere, in the blacks, in all of the grays, and the whites, but you don't see that here. And I love the way the clean black, the clean white, and the clean gray. It's not clean everywhere. You see over here the blue reflecting, but then in a lot of this wall it can express the achromatic color idea. All these shades of gray, you get a sense of clean gray, and it really helps this image to be as graphic and as simple as it can be. It really goes along with what we're confronted with when we look at this image right away, which is the simplicity of these shapes. There's another color thing in this image that I absolutely love. I've already said I feel like this is one of the main ideas in the image, not the main idea. And you have the achromatic color ideas of black, white, and gray. Then you have this sky blue, this sort of pure sky blue. Sometimes this blue can be cyan, it can push towards green, that can be nasty. Sometimes it can have a lot of magenta in there. This looks like pure sky blue. So it's sort of a pure color idea. Then you get to this tertiary color idea, an in-between color idea, this real light blue-green. And it's very different than everything else. Even though it's subtle, I love the fact that it's showing up in one of the highest energy areas of the image. It not only accentuates what's already a main idea, it just gives the image some more emotional depth. There's so many things to enjoy about Danielle's composition here. Just want to say a big thank you to Danielle for sharing this image with us. Want to encourage you to look through your images, pick your favorite images, and submit them for the photo of the week on the Mindful Eye. I want to say a big thank you to you for being here and for supporting this website by participating in all the ways that you do. Hope you have a fantastic weekend, and hope to see you again real soon on the Mindful Eye.